My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. Tommy was in his car seat behind me, asking why we had to leave Grandpa's party so fast. But I couldn't answer him. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst right out of my chest. I kept checking the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw it. The black sedan following us 3 cars back. At first, I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Gabriel's phone call had scared me so much that maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. But then the car moved into the left lane, and I got a clear view of the driver. My blood turned to ice. It was Claire, my sister Claire, sitting behind the wheel with a phone pressed to her ear. But this wasn't the Claire I knew. The Claire who braided my hair when we were kids. The Claire who cried with me at Mum's funeral. This Claire had a cold, focused expression I had never seen before. She was talking rapidly into the phone, her eyes locked on my car like a hunter tracking prey. How did this happen? Just 20 minutes ago, I was sitting at Dad's dining room table, watching him blow out the candles on his birthday cake. Tommy was giggling as frosting got all over his little fingers. Everything was normal. Everything was perfect. I had been working up the courage to finally ask Dad about Mum's inheritance again. For years, he'd been managing the trust fund she left me, always giving me excuses about why I couldn't access it. Market problems, legal issues, paperwork delays. But Gabriel and I really needed that money now. With Tommy starting school and Gabriel's job being so dangerous, I wanted financial security for our family. Dad, I had started to say, I really need to talk to you about Mum's trust fund. It's been 10 years, and I think it's time. That's when my phone rang. Gabriel's ringtone. He never called during family dinners unless something was seriously wrong. Where are you? His voice was sharp, urgent in a way that made my stomach drop. At Father's birthday dinner. Why? I had stepped into the hallway, away from the laughter and conversation. Take our son and leave, right now. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? What's happening? No time to explain, just go. The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, my mind racing. Gabriel worked for the CIA. When he said leave right now, he meant it. Something terrible was about to happen. I rushed back into the dining room, my heart hammering. I'm so sorry, but we have to go. Gabriel needs us home right away. Dad looked confused. Is everything okay, sweetheart? I'm sure it's fine. Work emergency. I was already scooping Tommy up from his chair, grabbing his jacket. Say goodbye to Grandpa, baby. But I didn't finish my cake, Tommy protested. We'll get cake at home, I promise. I kissed Dad's cheek quickly, looking around for Claire to say goodbye, but she wasn't in the room anymore. That was strange. She had been right there a minute ago, laughing at one of Dad's stories. Where's Claire? I asked. Oh, she stepped out to take a call, Dad said. Work thing. Work thing. Claire always said she did freelance consulting, but she was never specific about what kind. I grabbed my purse and Tommy's backpack, my hands trembling. Tell Claire I said goodbye, I called over my shoulder as we headed for the door. Now, driving through the dark streets with my sister following us like some kind of predator, I realized how stupid I had been. Claire wasn't taking a work call. She was getting instructions. Instructions about us. But why? Why would my own sister be following me? Why would Gabriel tell us to run from my father's house? What kind of danger were we in? Tommy was getting fussy in his car seat. Mummy, where are we going? I want to go home. We will, baby. We will. But as I watched Claire's car in my mirror, staying exactly 3 cars behind us, I wondered if we would ever be safe at home again. 3 months ago, everything in my life felt perfect. Gabriel would come home from his business trips and sweep me into his arms like we were still newlyweds. Tommy would run to his daddy, chattering about dinosaurs and his drawings from school. We had our little routines, our inside jokes, our quiet Sunday mornings in bed. I met Gabriel 8 years ago when I was working as an intelligence analyst. It wasn't glamorous work like in the movies. Mostly, I sat at a computer screen analyzing data patterns and writing reports. But Gabriel was different from the other agents who came through our department. He was quiet, thoughtful, and he actually listened when I explained my findings. Our first date was supposed to be coffee. It turned into dinner, then a long walk through the city, then talking until sunrise on a park bench. 3 months later, he proposed. 6 months after that, we were married in a small ceremony with just our families. When I got pregnant with Tommy, Gabriel insisted I leave the agency. "I want you safe," he said, rubbing my growing belly. "I want our family safe." I didn't argue. The work was stressful, and I wanted to be a full-time mum anyway. Dad was so proud when I married Gabriel. "Finally, a man who can take care of my daughter," he said at our wedding reception. Dad had always been my hero. After Mum died when I was 16, he raised Claire and me on his own. He worked for some kind of military contracting company, traveling a lot but always making sure we had everything we needed. Claire was only 13 when Mom died, so I helped raise her too. We were more like mother and daughter sometimes than sisters. I helped her with homework, took her shopping for her first prom dress, held her when she cried about boys. When she graduated college, I was the one cheering loudest in the audience. But lately, things had started feeling off. It began with small things. Gabriel would come home from trips looking exhausted and worried. He started checking the locks on our doors twice before bed. He changed our security system password 3 times in 2 months. When I asked him about it, he just said work was stressful. Then there was the money situation. We weren't struggling, but we weren't comfortable either. Gabriel's salary was decent, but not amazing. That's why I kept asking Dad about Mom's inheritance. She had left me a trust fund that was supposed to help secure my future. But every time I brought it up, Dad had another excuse. "The market's been rough, sweetheart. Better to leave it invested for now. There are some legal complications with the paperwork. My lawyer is working on it. You don't need to worry about money. You have Gabriel to take care of you." But I did worry, especially when Gabriel started talking about maybe needing to relocate for work. "Just temporarily," he said. 6 months, maybe a year. How could we afford to move and maintain 2 households if I couldn't access my own inheritance? Claire seemed to be doing well, though. She had a nice apartment downtown, drove a new car, always wore expensive clothes. When I asked her about her consulting work, she was vague. "Oh, you know, helping companies with their international business strategies. It's boring stuff." She visited us a lot, which I loved. She was such a good aunt to Tommy, always bringing him presents and playing with him for hours. But sometimes I caught her asking strange questions. "Has Gabriel mentioned anything about his next assignment? Does he ever bring work files home? Has he seemed worried about anything lately?" I thought she was just being a caring sister, worried about our family's well-being. Now, watching her follow us in that black sedan, I realized how naive I had been. Last week, Gabriel had done something that seemed paranoid at the time. He made me memorize a new route to Tommy's school, one that went through 3 different neighborhoods instead of the direct path. He also gave me a new phone number to call if I ever couldn't reach him. "Just in case," he said when I asked why. "In case of what?" "Just in case, Anna. Promise me you'll use it if something feels wrong." Something definitely felt wrong now. My perfect family? My loving father? My devoted sister? How much of it had been real? And how long had Gabriel known the truth? I took a sharp right turn, tires squealing slightly. Claire's sedan followed, maintaining that same careful distance. My phone was on speaker now, ringing Gabriel's number for the 4th time. "Mummy, you're driving scary," Tommy said from the back seat, his voice small and worried. "I'm sorry, baby. Mummy's just trying to get us somewhere safe." Finally, Gabriel answered. "Anna, where are you?" "Driving through downtown." "Gabriel, Claire is following us. My sister is actually following us in a car." "What is happening?" There was a long pause. Too long. "Anna, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your father has been selling classified information to foreign agents for years. The words hit me like a physical blow. I almost swerved into the next lane. What? That's impossible. Dad's a patriot. He served his country. He's been using his relationship with you to get information about my operations. Every time you mentioned where I was traveling, every casual conversation about my work schedule, every detail about our security routines, he was passing it all along. My mind raced back through years of innocent conversations. Dad asking about Gabriel's trips over Sunday dinners. Where's he off to this time? Always said with a smile, like he was just making conversation. Me, stupidly proud of my husband's important work, sharing little details I thought were harmless. But the inheritance money, I said, my voice breaking. He's been managing Mum's trust fund. He wouldn't steal from his own daughter. Gabriel's voice was grim. Anna, your mother left you $2.3 million. I've been investigating for months. Your father has been using that money to fund his operation. There's maybe $200,000 left. I felt like I was going to be sick. $2 million? Dad told me it was only about $300,000 total. He's been lying to you for 10 years. The money he's stolen from you has been laundered through his fake consulting business to pay for classified information. Claire has been helping him. Claire. Sweet Claire, who braided my hair and cried at Mum's funeral. No. No, she wouldn't. She loves me. She loves Tommy. She's been gathering intelligence through you, Anna. Every time she visited, every innocent question about my work, every time she offered to babysit so she could search our house. It was all planned. I remembered Claire's questions now with horrible clarity. How she always seemed so interested in Gabriel's schedule. How she would volunteer to help with laundry and somehow always ended up in our bedroom where Gabriel sometimes left work papers. How she knew details about our security system that I didn't remember telling her. Tonight was supposed to be the end, Gabriel continued. I discovered their plan this afternoon. They were going to eliminate me and make it look like an accident. With me gone, your father would have permanent control over what's left of your inheritance, and there would be no one left who knew about their operation. But why tonight? Why, at Dad's birthday party? It wasn't really his birthday, Anna. That was just an excuse to get us both in one place. They needed to know exactly where we were. I looked in the rearview mirror. Claire was still there, still talking on her phone, probably getting new instructions now that their plan had fallen apart. Where do I go? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Take the next left, then follow the signs to the industrial district. There's a warehouse at 1247 Porter Street. I'll meet you there. Gabriel, what about Tommy? What about our life? We'll figure it out, I promise. But right now, I just need you both safe. Tommy was crying softly in his car seat. I want to go home, Mummy. I want Grandpa. How could I explain to a 6-year-old that Grandpa was one of the bad guys? That the aunt who brought him dinosaur toys and read him bedtime stories had been using him to hurt his daddy? We're going to see Daddy, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. Everything's going to be okay. But as I turned toward the industrial district, Claire's headlights still following us through the darkness, I wondered if anything would ever be okay again. My whole life had been built on lies, and now it was crumbling around us. The warehouse was dark and cold, with only a few security lights casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Gabriel was already there when we arrived, and he pulled me and Tommy into his arms like he hadn't seen us in years instead of hours. Daddy! Tommy cried, clinging to Gabriel's neck. Mommy was driving scary, and I was scared. I know, buddy, but you're safe now. You're both safe. Gabriel led us to a small office in the back of the warehouse where he had set up a laptop and spread papers across a metal desk. I've been gathering evidence for months, he said, showing me bank statements and photographs. Look at this. The documents were devastating. Bank transfers from offshore accounts to my father's business. Photos of Dad meeting with men I didn't recognize in parking garages and hotel lobbies. Encrypted emails discussing the package and delivery schedules that Gabriel explained were code for classified information. Your inheritance, Gabriel said, pulling up financial records on his laptop. Your mother's original will specified $2.3 million in a trust fund. Look at the withdrawals over the past 10 years. The numbers made me sick. Hundreds of thousands of dollars taken out in chunks, always with vague explanations like investment management fees and legal expenses. My father had been systematically stealing my mother's legacy to fund his betrayal of our country. I trusted him, I whispered, staring at the evidence. I trusted him with everything. That's when we heard a car door slam outside. Gabriel immediately moved to the window, then cursed under his breath. She found us! Through the dirty glass, I could see Claire walking toward the warehouse entrance. But this wasn't the Claire I knew. She moved with purpose, confidence, like someone who had done this before. She wasn't even trying to hide anymore. Anna, she called out as she entered the warehouse. I know you're here. We need to talk. Gabriel motioned for me to stay back with Tommy, but I found myself walking toward my sister's voice. I needed to hear this from her own mouth. Claire stood in the main area of the warehouse, looking perfectly calm. When she saw me, she smiled that same warm smile I'd known my whole life. There you are. You scared us, running off like that. Scared who, Claire? Dad and me, of course. We were worried about you. She took a step closer. Anna, Gabriel has been lying to you. He's the one who's been stealing your inheritance money. Dad discovered it months ago. I felt my world tilting again. What? Gabriel's been gambling, Anna. Online poker, sports betting, all kinds of things. He's been taking money from your trust fund to cover his debts. Dad was trying to protect what was left. She pulled out a folder and handed it to me. Inside were bank statements showing transfers from my trust fund to accounts with Gabriel's name on them. Credit card bills for gambling websites. Loan documents with Gabriel's signature. This is impossible, I said, but my hands were shaking as I looked at the papers. Dad hired a private investigator, Claire continued. Gabriel found out and decided to eliminate the threat. He's been planning to kill Dad and make it look like an accident. Then he was going to disappear with you and Tommy and whatever money was left. I looked back toward the office where Gabriel was watching us, Tommy still in his arms. The man I loved, the father of my child. Could he really be capable of this? The phone call tonight, Claire said softly. He told you to run because Dad confronted him at the party. Gabriel panicked and decided to accelerate his timeline. But you were following us, I said weakly, because I was trying to protect you. Anna, he's dangerous. Look at where he brought you. An abandoned warehouse in the middle of nowhere. Does this seem like the action of an innocent man? I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see Gabriel approaching, still carrying Tommy. But now I noticed things I hadn't before. The way his eyes kept darting to the exits. The tension in his shoulders. The fact that he had brought us to this isolated place instead of a police station. Anna, Gabriel said carefully, whatever she's telling you, it's not true. But Claire was already pulling out her phone. Dad's on his way with help. Real help. Federal agents who can sort this whole mess out. I stood between my husband and my sister, holding forged documents that painted Gabriel as a criminal, while my 6-year-old son watched with confused, frightened eyes. Who was I supposed to believe? The sound of multiple car doors slamming outside made my heart race. Through the warehouse windows, I could see headlights and dark figures moving toward the building. Claire smiled triumphantly, but something about her expression made my stomach turn. That's Dad, she said. With the federal agents, everything's going to be okay now, Anna. But Tommy suddenly spoke up from Gabriel's arms, his small voice cutting through the tension. Mummy, why did Aunt Claire know about Daddy's secret work phone? I froze. What do you mean, baby? At Grandpa's house last week, when we were playing hide and seek. I hid under Grandpa's desk and heard Aunt Claire talking to someone. She said the number that Daddy uses for his secret work calls. The one you're not supposed to know. Gabriel had given me an emergency contact number months ago, making me promise never to share it with anyone. I had never told a soul, not even Claire. But somehow she knew it. Claire's face went pale. Tommy's just confused. Kids mix things up. No, I said slowly, pieces clicking into place. Tommy has an amazing memory. He remembers everything. I looked at my sister with new eyes. How did you know Gabriel's classified contact number? I don't know what you're talking about, but I was remembering more now. Last month, when Claire babysat Tommy, I came home to find her in our bedroom. She said she was looking for a phone charger, but our bedroom was upstairs and all the chargers were in the kitchen. 2 weeks ago, she asked if Gabriel ever brought work files home. Yesterday, she wanted to know if Gabriel seemed worried about his next assignment. The warehouse door burst open and my father walked in with 3 armed men. But these weren't federal agents. They moved wrong, looked wrong, and Dad's expression wasn't that of a concerned father. It was cold, calculating. "Hello, sweetheart," Dad said, his voice different now, harder. "I'm sorry it had to come to this." "Dad, what's happening?" He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "What's happening is that your husband discovered our operation. Very inconvenient timing, really. We were so close to completing the final transfer." "Final transfer?" "The last of your mother's money," Claire said, dropping her fake concern completely. "We've been bleeding that account dry for years, but there's still about 200,000 left, enough for us to disappear permanently." I stared at them in horror. "You've been stealing from me. Your own daughter, your own sister." Dad shrugged. "Your mother left you money you never earned, for a life you were too weak to build yourself. At least we put it to good use. Do you have any idea how much classified information is worth on the international market?" "You betrayed your country," Gabriel said, his voice deadly quiet. "My country betrayed me first," Dad snapped. 25 years of military service, and what did I get? A pension that barely covers rent, and a government that forgot I existed. So I decided to even the score. Claire stepped closer to me. "Anna, you were always so naive, so trusting. It was almost too easy, getting information from you about Gabriel's work. You told me everything without even realizing it." "I loved you," I whispered. "And I used that love," she said without a trace of remorse. "Just like Dad used your trust. We're family, Anna. But business is business." That's when I remembered something else. Something that changed everything. "Tommy," I said quietly. "Remember when you were drawing last week and you found that old paper in Mummy's jewelry box?" Tommy nodded. "The one with all the fancy writing. I had forgotten about my mother's original will. The copy she had given me years ago that I'd hidden away and never looked at again. But Tommy had found it while playing, and I'd glanced at it briefly before putting it back. "Gabriel," I said. "My mother's will specified that if anything happened to the primary trustee, my father, control would automatically transfer to her backup choice." Dad's face went white. "That's impossible. I destroyed all copies." "Not all of them." I looked at Claire and Dad with new strength. "Mum never trusted you completely, Dad. Her backup trustee was her lawyer, Mr. Henderson. He's still alive, still practicing law, and he's been wondering for years why he never heard from me about the inheritance." The sound of real sirens filled the air outside. Gabriel smiled grimly. "I called the actual FBI hours ago. They've been tracking your operation for months, Frank. Tonight was just the final piece of evidence they needed." As federal agents swarmed into the warehouse, I held Tommy close and watched my father and sister being arrested. The family I thought I knew had never existed, but the family I had built with Gabriel and Tommy, that was real. That was worth fighting for. And finally, after 10 years of lies, I was going to get my mother's legacy back.